there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my last book haul of 2020. So I feel like I just did a book haul, a large book haul, about 17 books, but somehow I've acquired some more since then. Yes, I have a problem. I have some adult fantasy to show you, some adult sci-fi, and some young adult fantasy. So this book haul does include kind of a controversial book purchase that I wasn't sure if I was going to buy or not. So make sure that you guys stick around to the end so you can tell me if you have read this book and what you thought of it, and if you think that I should read it. But before we go ahead and get on into the books, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new content. I post new videos every Sunday and every Wednesday and sometimes Friday. Also, don't forget to check down in the description box for links to all of my social media, including my Buddy Read Discord and my Patreon. The first book I'm going to be talking about is Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir. This is book 4 in her Ember in the Ashes series. I just started reading the series this year and have gotten all caught up, and the last book was one of my most anticipated books. This world is a very brutal Roman-inspired world, and we follow a military class, which is the more prominent superior class, and then we follow the scholar class, which is an oppressed class by the military elites. And we follow Elias, a soldier who has deserted, and Lyra, a girl who entered willingly the slave class in order to spy on Elias and some other people within the military class. And the story kind of goes from there. In book 3, Reaper at the Gates, we're introduced to like a newer, bigger conflict and an invasion of this empire. And it's just a series that has grown so much, and these characters have grown also so much. There has been twists and turns with Elias that I didn't see coming from the beginning. One of our characters, Helene, has really taken a prominent role of this series, and I'm really excited to see how Sabaa Tahir ends it and if it'll go out with a bang or not. This is one of the books that I was highly anticipated in the end of the year, and I can't wait to get to it. Next, I have a couple of adult fantasy books, and this series was actually recommended to me. I had never heard of it before, and that is the Raven Marks series by Ed McDonald, the first book being Blackwing. In this book, we follow a man named Ryholt, and he is a bounty hunter. And in this world, 100 years ago, there was this huge war between mortals and immortals known as Deep Kings. And the Deep Kings were defeated, and they were kind of sequestered and guarded by this huge weapon known as the Engine. But one day, Ryholt gets accidentally put in the middle of this attack by the Deep Kings, and it is uncovered that either this engine is failing or the Deep Kings no longer fear it for some reason or another. But this book was described to me as being a grimdark, but also having elements of steampunk, which is like, those two things together just sound perfect. They're two things that I absolutely love, and since I've never heard of this series, I'm hoping it'll be like kind of a hidden gem. So not only did I get the first book, Blackwing, but I also picked up book 2, which is Ravencry. Next, I have The Boneshard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This book was so kindly sent to me by one of my subscribers and Patreons, so thank you, Alex, so much for sending this to me. It's a book that has been on my radar since it came out. In a world ruled by bone magic, our main character, Lynn, has to try to overthrow her despotic father in order to reclaim her birthright and save her empire. But in order to do that, she has to use bone magic, which is the very thing that all of her subjects fear. So this is a book that I am very interested in and very excited to get to. So once again, Alex, thank you so much for sending this to me. The next 4 books I have are all adult science fiction books. The first one is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. This is book 2, or kind of a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, and I've actually already read this. I read it last year when it came out, and it was one of my favorite books of 2019, but I wanted my own copy. I wanted to wait till it came out on paperback so it would kind of match my version of The Handmaid's Tale, but I really liked this book. I didn't like it as much as the first book, but I thought it was a good expansion of the world. I liked learning how our characters' influence for the first book carried into this story. The only negative thing I have with Margaret Atwood's 2 books of hers that I've read is that I feel like her endings are super abrupt, and it leaves a lot to be inferred. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad to have this in my collection. Next, I have To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. This was one of the books that I said was a new release from 2020 that I wanted to get to but haven't yet. And I wasn't planning on buying this book, but my bookstore, Books A Million, was having a Black Friday sale and it was 50% off plus my 20% educator discount. So I ended up getting it for a super good price. So I decided to grab it while that sale was going on. And this book follows a girl named Kira, and Kira is on a space mission on this planet that she's prospecting to see if it can be inhabited by humans, but she comes across this relic that kind of makes her and the rest of humanity question some things about what they know about their own existence. Like I said, this is a book that I wish I'd gotten to in 2020, but it is one that I know I'll read in 2021. I'm excited to read more Christopher Paolini, especially now that he has put out a book as an older person. And I want to include more science fiction in my reading next year anyway, so I feel like this book will be a perfect addition to that. The next book I have is Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill, and this is a book that I had seen floating around Goodreads at some time or another, but I personally have never heard anybody talk about it or even on BookTube or anything like that, but it has high ratings on Goodreads. But in this world, we are following a post-apocalyptic setting, and humans have been completely annihilated by robots. And even the robots that exist have to willingly join this OWI, One World Intelligence. So it's kind of like a hive community of all of these robots. And the robots that choose not to join the OWI are outcast. So we're following a little robot named Brittle who is basically exiled, and she is journeying through this sea of rust where robots go to die. And as she is journeying, she's learning more exactly about what happened between the robots and the humans and how brutal it was. And it just sounds like a book I've never read before. I think it's supposed to be kind of like a commentary on humanity through the eyes of a robot. And I've heard that the robot starts to mimic or understand human emotions and that it's very emotional. So definitely one that has piqued my interest. Sounds interesting and like nothing I've ever read before. And lastly, we come to the book that has been getting a lot of controversy lately, and that is Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I read Ready Player 1 a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it, and my husband loved Ready Player 1, and he's not like a huge reader, so I basically picked up Ready Player 2 for him, but I know that I'm going to end up reading it. I've heard so many people say that it's a cash grab, but I've heard other people say that they just loved being back in this world, so I really am not sure where I'm going to fall on the spectrum. This is another book that was on my list of new releases in 2020 that I didn't get to, but I do want to read it despite the kind of negative reviews it's got. So if you have read Ready Player 2, let me know in the comments your thoughts about it and if you think I should prioritize it or kind of put it on the back burner for now. Alright you guys, so that is it for all of the books in my last book haul of 2020. Let me know if you have read any of these or which books you thought were good or I should put first in the coming year, and I will see y'all soon in another video. Goodbye!